You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Running a business can be exhausting. Building your website shouldn't be. With Wix, you can express your ideas, give direction, then leave the heavy lifting to AI, from site creation to branded content and images. Have fun with the details. Customize what you want the way you want, and manage your whole business from a centralized dashboard with expert AI tools. Build, scale, and enjoy the incredible results. You can do it all yourself on Wix.
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. It is Sunday, March 16th, St. Patrick's Day Eve, Brandon. This is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Good. Thanks for asking, Josh. Yeah, it's St. Patrick's Day Eve. Had that classic walk out the door Saturday morning, and then the dawning realization of all the revelers were out in search of Bud Light everywhere.
Yep.
Meanwhile, my greater concerns were how things were going with my fantasy team, which is why we're here.
Yep.
And I guess we kind of have to milk Game Week 29 for all it's worth now, because it's going to be a while before we have Game Week 30, because there's the international break. And then the following weekend is FA Cup quarterfinals. So then it's a midweek slate after that, where we get Game Week 30. So, the classic vibe check. If you had a good game week in Game Week 29, you're gonna be riding high for the next 2 weeks.
I would say the scores were like a mixed bag, like pretty, like not. I didn't feel like we didn't see as many bad scores as I was expecting. Like I thought it was especially when Cole Palmer didn't play today, but it was like there were enough kind of random clean sheets, an Arsenal clean sheet here, Fulham clean sheet there, to kind of keep things like there was a floor to this game week. I feel like you sometimes with these like blank game weeks, you have scores like in the 11s, and the 18 and stuff like that. But I feel like it was like, I'm not even sure what the average was, but it had to be in the, 27. So, I mean, not huge, but not terrible either, right?
Sure. You've seen blank game weeks that are worse, especially when you've got somebody like Mo Salah or even Isak out, who are perennial favorites.
Congrats to Newcastle, by the way. I think it was their first trophy since 1969.
Nice.
Wow.
Hashtag.
Nice. Yeah. I did not realize it had been that long. Like, I know they had the sort of famous collapse down the stretch in the 90s when they were fighting for the Premier League title. I just assumed they would have, picked up a League Cup one of those years.
Yeah, how hard is it? Come on. I mean, Spurs, how hard could it be?
Even Spurs have picked up a couple, right? Everton have multiple, none of Forest have won 2 European Cups since 1969.
No, it was good. It was an interesting match as far as just kind of gauging big fantasy assets with Liverpool, because Liverpool just looked completely out of gas.
Yeah.
And
they should have enough to win the Premier League without too much struggle. But
certainly,
yeah.
I mean, I think they had to win like 5 or 6 matches in total to clinch,
and that's assuming the other like Arsenal or whomever win
out,
every
which
single
game.
Yep.
It's not like Arsenal are full strength at this point anyway.
Right.
So that was certainly one big takeaway, but the other is Newcastle. Like, it's very interesting. When the Saudi money came in, you thought, oh, is this like a rocket ship a la Manchester City?
Yeah.
And it seems to be like a level of organic. Now, this is all very relative, right? Because there was an influx of money, which they seemingly spent wisely. But I'm really kind of into the development of this Newcastle squad.
Yeah, me too. I thought maybe this, like, the phase 1 was kind of over. Like, I feel like it's time a few months ago where I was like, like maybe Howe's got to go. Not that like the project was a failure, but just like they might have needed to like refresh a little bit or something like that. But it does feel like the pieces are really fitting quite nicely now, and the emergence of I don't know. I mean, Lewis obviously is injured right now, but just like it feels like there's enough sort of good young players, some squad depth. Isak playing as arguably the best. I mean, he can make a case for the best forward in the Premier League right now. I mean,
easily,
it depends on whether you call. I suppose Salah is a forward in the traditional sense, right? Yeah. But from fantasy point of view,
right.
So yeah, lots to, and they have a double game week coming up too. So to keep this on the fantasy keel here, you and I both have triple captains still to play. Doubles coming up. I think next week we're gonna have to talk more about wild cards, and so I did play my free hit this week. We'll talk about that in just a second. I still have a wild card, a triple captain, and a bench boost. So I have those 3 chips, and I think you have 4 left to play, right?
I have wild card, bench boost, triple captain, and free hit. Yeah. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So
lots.
Somebody on the Discord was asking me, like, Brandon, what's your plan? And I don't have one. And it's a little bit lack of trying, and it's also I have not seen the point for me in my current position to do much planning until we see what happens with these FA Cup quarterfinals, because that just plays into where other doubles and blanks will fall. That's a big part of the strategy.
So while we're talking about your team, then why don't you kick things off? I mean, how did your game week end up? I know it wasn't great, wasn't like the worst though either. Like, how did you end up finishing this game week?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting and a hopeful game week for me going into the Leicester-Manchester United fixture. So I had 3 free transfers, and I used them on goalkeeper Alisson to Sells. Forward, I moved who would that have been to Chris Wood? Oh, Ollie Watkins to Chris Wood. And then I brought in Kluivert for Dango.
Yeah.
And that was just a total net neutral. Didn't get any returns from them, and captaining
just
Wood.
A weird match. I would not have ever expected. I mean, yeah, between Mbomo, Evan Nilsson, Kluivert, Semenyo, Utaro, you got one total assist, right, among kind of all of these highly owned fantasy assets. I mean, Kirk, as I guess, delivered, but just a 4-pointer from him. So not a strange, well, we can talk about more in a second, but a strange Saturday, I would say, for FPL assets.
Yeah, very, very up and down. I mean, me having Mbomo and Wissa in my squad, that was a hugely important match for me, and that kind of did turn the tide for me in the weekend, and then waking up this morning getting clean sheets from Gabriel and Robinson basically took me into a green arrow. And then it was all riding on what Bruno Fernandes was going to do in the Leicester match. And as we know, he kind of went a bit supernova.
Yeah.
And so that dropped my OR by about 50K. So I ended on 40 points. And for not being on a chip, it feels like a survival in a way. But I mean, the 17-pointer from Bruno, I think just does make it a little bit of a failure of a game week for me. And I'm sitting on 220K right now or thereabouts. So I've got some work to do to make the move to the top 100K for the end of the season. With those chips, I've got every tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. You and I were both kind of, I think maybe our reads were a little off this week, because I was sort of, I didn't quite get the forwards right this week. And I think you were I think I was kind of actually trying to. I did have Bruno in my free hit squad, but you were kind of looking at him as a possible transfer option, and I was kind of trying to talk you out of it, like not strongly, but I just didn't. I just felt like he was too much of a wild card, and that I honestly thought that Kluivert was a better asset this game week.
Yeah, the problem with Bruno going into game week 29 was he was and remains in really great form, and the Leicester fixture was obviously on paper really good for him. Yeah. However, the fixtures get significantly worse for Manchester United going forward. So on a free hit, Bruno was the perfect pickup. If you just brought him in on a free or took a hit, it worked for this game week, but then you're kind of left with a lot of reservations about what is going to happen with this Manchester United squad going forward, as they are away Forest in game week 30, followed by Manchester Derby and then Newcastle. So Bruno kind of remains, he's a fantasy lockbox, Josh.
Yeah, maybe kind of an ideal pick if you were free hitting, or I guess if you're like kind of locked into a wild card in game week 30, I think that would then he was a good pick for that kind of manager as well. I would say personally, I don't quite know yet if I'm going to wild card in 30. I'm not planning to at the moment, just because I sort of look at my squad and I actually kind of like it for game week 30. I don't know. Trent's injury is a bummer. Like that if Trent wasn't injured, I'd feel quite good, just rolling for game week 30. But with him being injured, it puts me in a slightly trickier position, and so I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah, I have no intention of wildcarding in game week 30. Wildcarding in the international break is great because you get to play the market, see if you can catch price rises, etc. Yeah. But then the game week, just historically coming out of the international break, is really odd. And then the quarterfinals of the FA Cup involve Crystal Palace, Fulham, Forest, Man City, Brighton. Let's see who else. Whoever plays in the quarterfinals, they have a league match 2 days later. Right. The turnaround is insane.
Right. And if you're a squad like Crystal Palace, how much do you really care about your Premier League fixtures down the stretch here? Right.
I think all of these teams are going to go for it in the cup.
Well, Fulham now are in an interesting spot, right? Because with their win today, they have a kind of, would you call it a puncher's chance of certainly of European football?
I guess.
Maybe not a Champions League spot. It looks like they're probably going to get Europe.
Does it? I don't think so. I mean, this has been the narrative throughout the season. 4 teams like Brighton, Fulham, Villa, Bournemouth, Brent. The commentators are talking about Brentford with their win against Bournemouth, that they were suddenly in the conversation for Europe. It is really tightly packed. Yes, everybody has a chance, but I'm not. No, like if you're Fulham, you go for the closest silverware you can find.
I'm just saying they're one spot away from. I mean, they're basically 2 points off of Europe right now. Okay, right? If they swap places with Brighton, who are in 7th, they'd be in the European Conference League side, and that assumes that we have that we know what we're getting in terms of in terms of some of the allocated spots after the season.
So what are you suggesting? What does that suggest to you, Fulham?
I'm just saying if you're Fulham and you have a chance at, a chance at the European spot. I just mean that they're not in a position where they can take this weekend easy, right? Whereas Crystal Palace, they're in 12th place. Like they're not going to get Europe and they're not going to go down. So the weekend match away to Southampton is kind of like, to me, I would not be, if anybody traveled for me, right? Like for the international break, I would not be starting them this weekend, right? Like anybody who had or any kind of fitness doubt, right? Whereas I think with Fulham, it's like they have to just play a little more. They just got to play for both, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I get you. And I guess that we're zeroing in on the same point, is that game week 30 is going to be a very difficult one to predict lineups, especially for these upper mid-table clubs who have everything to play
antagonistic about my Fulham point. My point is just that they have a chance for Europe. You just don't think they can.
No, I feel like you were suggesting that they were going to roll in the FA Cup match. So
I was not, at no point was I suggesting that. What I was suggesting was that for them, they have to prioritize both the Premier League and the FA Cup right now because they have a legitimate shot at Europe. And so they're not in a position where they're going to be resting their top players.
That is a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The issue I have fantasy wise is, and that we're like, just look at Liverpool. We're entering the end of the season and players are tired. The legs are shot.
Yeah.
And even though you have everything to play for in the league, you can't just play another high octane match 48, 72 hours later and expect great results. I just think it's going to be very difficult for teams like Fulham to going into game week 30 after going for it in the FA Cup quarterfinals.
I was happy to see Ancelotti I don't know if you saw this, but he made a big stand in Spain. I think it was either yesterday or today, where he was basically like, we played the Champions League and now we're playing in La Liga like less than 72 hours after our last match. And he said, if they ever schedule this again, we just won't field a team because this is
okay. We'll see about that.
Sure. I mean, but the point is you have to start.
You have to speak up. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, they are running these players into the ground. I mean, the Premier League is, it seems at times like 3/4 of the Premier League is injured. Right. And this is what happens when you stack cups on top of cups and, whatever. So, I mean, this is, we're all familiar with this problem at this point. I mean, Jurgen Klopp's been complaining about this for 10 years, but I think because it was funny because Ancelotti was like, oh, now we've got this club, like the contempt when he was talking about the Club World Cup this summer. He's like, now we have this Club World Cup that takes place a week after the season ends. It is true. What a ridiculous thing that is.
Yeah. That feels like the easiest thing in the world to just ghost.
Absolutely. It should be all squad players. No one should take that thing. It should be like whenever the Premier League comes to America in the summer and it's just all like, it's like one famous person and 10 squad players.
Yeah. All right. That's my squad. 40 points. We march on. No huge plans for game week 30 just yet. How about you? How'd the free hit go? How you feeling about it?
Well, pretty good. I finished on 55 points on the free hit, which I'm pretty happy with. It's my defense didn't work out. I sort of took a couple of gambles. I tried the Everton double up. I mean, that was working for the first 80 minutes of that match, and so I feel a little unfortunate to lose the clean sheet there. Aït-Nouri, again, he had I don't know when Southampton scored, but it was quite late in that one. Actually, I think all of my clean sheets were lost like after the 70th minute because Aina, I think, was the same way, right? When did Forrest concede in that match?
It was late on. Yeah.
So, it was looking like an absolute, like blazing start because Holland scores early and the clean sheets are looking good. So, Saturday was okay. And then Sunday was, I had the double up with Kluivert and Evan Nilsson, didn't work out. Chris Wood blank, although I'm not actually sure how much that hurt me in the end because he was, highly captained, especially when people who were not free hitting this week. So a blank there was maybe okay. And then brought in Odegaard, got an assist today. I actually had considered Marino too, but happy with the 5 points there. And then 17 from Bruno. And I suppose the one mistake I maybe made was captaining Haaland over Bruno, but I don't know. I just, I had Bruno for several weeks leading up to this, and it was just, one bad return after another. And maybe I was sort of held on to that a little bit, this like kind of feeling that at the very least, a feeling that he's unpredictable, right? And it sort of just threw me off. It dissuaded me a little bit from going all the way and him.
You see the Manchester United lineup too ahead of the Leicester City match, and you're just thinking like, Christian Eriksen, Højlund, and Garnacho.
Yeah,
and Bruno's got to like spin gold out of these guys.
Totally, and it was scoreless the first 40 minutes. Right? It was just it was kind of
just turns out Leicester are absolutely horrible.
It's a shame. I mean, it's Leicester and Southampton are just about as I don't know. Yeah, they have not exactly covered the championship with glory this season. Ipswich I think have been fine. Like I think Ipswich can go down with their heads hung high. Like it's like, at least they've been fun. Like, they've sort of like, they've, you know, I mean, they've like put in, you know, Liam Delap's going to move on. There's a number of Hutchinson will, you know, actually, I can't remember if he's on loan or if he's actually, I feel like he's on loan from somewhere.
Liam Delap has been so quiet the last month plus. Just like, where are these guys? Like when Ipswich need them the most.
Yeah, I think it's just tough that first year up. And
Calvin Phillips was the original sin with Ipswich coming up. That guy is a total toxic asset at this point. Yeah,
the other one is what's his name? The Brighton player that they brought in, the midfielder whose name is escaping me right now. Enciso playing for them now, and it's just sort of, he is just like a stressful player to watch. It's like he's a little bit like I don't know, like, he
has knockout energy. I think very knockhardy, very try hardy, very like, here, watch, I'm going to do it all myself sort of a guy.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the Portuguese player who was on Newcastle? Figo. Well, no, just like in the last like year. Who was the, you know, Almiron?
Oh,
where he has like some
Paraguayan.
kind of Paraguayan, excuse me. Almiron has some like, where Almiron was sort of like, he could be really fun, but there were times when it was like, are you playing the same game as everybody else in your team? Right? It felt like he was sort of doing kind of his own thing, and Cisa feels the same way, and you can see why Ipswich went for it. Like, well, if we get the best version of him, it's amazing. You can, you know, unlock a defense and all that stuff. But otherwise, he just looks ridiculous, and he's just shooting, you know, low XG shots.
It's like walking into Walmart and, you know, your friend, relative, child pulls something off of the, you know, the display, and they're like, "Look, it's on sale," and you're like, "Yeah, but we're not buying that because that's junk." This is what I think of, like, every Ipswich buy this year.
Like, it just really has not worked out for them, unfortunately. But again, I think certainly of the promoted teams, they're the ones that have been the most interesting to watch. So I think in the end, I feel pretty good. I mean, 55 is it's literally double the average for this week, right? And so and most importantly, my non-free hit team would have had about 9 total points. Like, I would have had nothing from that team. I mean, I could have minus 16 my way to to a 20-point haul or something. So the kind of like free hit over, like, as a replacement for the squad I would have had, is worth like 30 points right there. And so, and I'm on a green arrow. I'm up, I'm not actually up as quite as much as I would have expected given how high above average I am. Maybe I'm up about 70K or so. But still, I'll take that. And so that gets me back, into a reasonable place. It's 2 green arrows in a row. So, like you said, a good game week for international break is always nice. It makes you feel like you're going into the break with a little bit of extra
wind in
energy.
Your sails.
Wind in your sails. Yeah, you're not like, oh my God, I cannot think about FPL for 13 days, which is how I sometimes feel when I've had a bad game week going into, an IB. So, a couple of quick talking points, though, from the weekend that we didn't cover. Yeah, so a tough Saturday for key FPL assets. I mean, Sal's, Anna Wood, all blanking for Forest, Clivert, Evan Nilsson, Semenyo, Otara, excuse me. I have an interesting decision with Otara going into the Ipswich match. I mean, part of me is just going to start him, I think, because he's back in my squad, post free hit, and
he's back.
And it's either, do I want Jimenez away to Arsenal or a bench Utara and the Ipswich at home, and maybe there's like a puncher's chance of a start, right? So I think I got to go with bench Utara, because 30 minutes of Otara home to Ipswich. I mean, we just saw what happened in the last 30 minutes of the Ipswich Forest match. There were 4 goals scored in the last 25 minutes of that match. So
I guess the only bit of caution with the Utara thing is he got 5 minutes. He's coming off the bench later and later. And he almost, if Sinistera, who was another second half substitution, didn't get injured, I'm not sure that Utara was even coming on.
Yeah, so, which is weird because I thought he played really well when Evan Nilsson was out. So,
I don't get it either. Yeah. And I like his Tavernier. Tavernier on the right. They really love Semenyo on the left for some reason. I can't quite figure it out. But I thought Evan Nilsson played really well. Clivert, and Evan Nielsen both created 3 chances in the game. Clivert certainly easily could have had fantasy returns there.
Yeah.
So I think we're really zeroing in on the crucial Bournemouth assets now.
Yeah. And other results from Saturday, Strand Larson with a brace. So I guess he was the kind of the lost. It probably was, congrats to anyone who went for a punt with him, because it was fair enough, right? I mean, they were playing Southampton. You could certainly make a case for just kind of, someone's playing Southampton, get their forward. Like there's
extreme. I don't want to be around any more energy from that entire Southampton defense against Wolves. So
whereas Wolves, they celebrate. I mean, for them, it's like that was a huge win, right? That's like a 6-pointer kind of
basically put the bottom 3 down with that win.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's good, because I mean, this Wolves team it's just been a weird year for them, but they're not a terrible team to watch. And there's, I think there's things their defense is obviously has some problems, but I think up front, there's some interesting pieces there. You can sort of,
I agree.
Yeah. So, let's see. And then we move on to, Sunday. Palmer misses out. I didn't see any rumors about Palmer being out, on Friday. Did you?
I didn't. Yeah. They kind of just started appearing
yesterday?
Late last night. Yeah. It was just it's touch and go.
Issue. Yeah.
My suspicion is, not knowing anything, is that the concern is Palmer is just really jaded. He's played too much, and they wanted to clearly. Yeah. I don't know what they anticipated with this Arsenal fixture, but that just Palmer wasn't ready for it. And let's give him the rest of the break off so we can come back. And because Chelsea are in a very precarious situation with Champions League now. And they looked a mess, a total mess against Arsenal. They had no coherent plan as far as I could gather.
I know you think that Fulham have no chance of a Champions League spot, but they're only 4 back of Chelsea. I think, there's a shot at least.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, I'd love it. Josh.
Okay. Can you imagine if Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, and Fulham all made the Champions League?
Fulham have blown countless results in the last minute this season. And if they could just they just tire at the end of matches. Yeah. If they could have just closed down, managed the game, they could easily be in 4th place right now. Yeah.
I mean, you can say that about a lot of these clubs, though, right? Sure. I mean, that's what you get in this zone here, right? In that kind of just sub Champions League zone. I mean, Newcastle are certainly worthy of being a Champions League squad, and they're still in 6th place. So, I mean, and congrats to Brighton too, getting an impressive draw. Or I don't know. I think it's still an impressive draw. I had a weird draw. Yeah, exactly.
They were in moments like the just insanely inferior team, but they were able to capitalize on City just continually shooting themselves in the foot.
We have never seen a defensive collapse like whatever is happening with Man City.
This Kushner guy,
bizarre.
I don't know about.
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, this is a team that last year, I don't know how many goals they gave up the final 10 weeks of the season, but it feels like it was less than 5. Right? It was like they were unbelievable, and it's wild. I mean, obviously they didn't have Rodri, but
I wonder if the book comes out 15, 20 years from now about points shaving. It's the Pete Rosification of this City team. It's the goals going in are some weird goals. I'll tell you what. I know.
I mean, Ederson got benched because he was so, And you see Pep, and I just can't help but love Pep. I've never had it in me to dislike him, and he's just, I mean, I root against Man City frequently just because it's fun to, right? It's fun to root against the team that has the most money. But he just, even in the match yesterday, just watching him collapse, every goal that was scored. I mean, he still has a lot of fire. I mean, obviously the blame has to fall on him as the manager, but it's just bizarre. I mean, these guys, the mistakes that they're making, like you're saying, is the mind boggles, right? I mean, I'm still thinking about the Ederson goal that he allowed Hudson-Odoi last week, right? Just crazy.
The Pep sideline cam against Brighton was too much. They like intentionally were catching him when he was forming little loogies on his tongue. Disgusting.
This is like when they do this with Tom Izzo, the Michigan State coach too, and you watch these games and it's like I don't need to see him freak out every time. Like it stresses me out, just to see this.
Yeah. Can Wenger zip up his jacket? Let's linger on this while the game is in play.
So yeah, exactly. It was a Wenger cam kind of thing. So that's honestly that's an even better comparison because they just show when Arsenal were at kind of their worst, and they were like, well, let's see if we can still make a Champions League spot after we sell every player to Man City, and it was
see if we can spot any signs of Parkinson's in the next 30 seconds here.
I know. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Little did we know he was going to go try to ruin world football with FIFA.
What's going on, man? We live in interesting times, John.
We do. Exactly. We really do. So yeah, it was interesting so Arsenal do get the clean sheet. I had some family in town this weekend and I was watching the Arsenal Chelsea match this morning, and it was kind of funny because when it was over, I turned to my I guess he's my nephew. He's pretty close in age to me because my wife's sister is much older. But I turned to my nephew and said, "Sorry, that was really boring." It was was just not a great. I mean, it was a good 1-0 for Arsenal, good match. But I felt like it lacked a certain je ne sais quoi,
Yeah, Chelsea just couldn't raise their they had opportunities to play. And they just didn't have a coherent plan to do so.
Yeah. But Fulham with a clean sheet, Jimenez blank. I saw Leno with an assist. So yes. I think he finished on, 14 points all told.
It was an amazing goal too. He just rocketed it up to Sessegnon, who came on as a sub, and he just turned and just a 1 in a million goal, put it right in the postage stamp, and you could see what it meant to him coming back home from Spurs, where he just didn't really get a run.
Yeah. Or wait, was he at Spurs at one point?
Yeah, Sessegnon moved to Spurs, and they were trying.
Sessegnon. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Leno. Yes.
Sure. Yes. They all go through Spurs at some point, don't they? But yeah, it was a wonderful goal for Fulham fans for sure. Yeah. And then if you're a Leno owner, are there any of you out there?
Yeah,
phenomenal haul.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, obviously, Champions League's impossible, but there's a lot to like for this season. All right, and then we talked about the Bruno match. Dalot as well, another 11-pointer from him. I tinkered with Dalot in my free hit squad. Ultimately, I just it really just shows my lack of faith in Man United that I couldn't get there with Dalot. But he had 11 points too, so another big game week for him. Brandon, let's move on though to the. So the international break does begin today. That means we are fully through game week 27, and we can salute with 3/4 of the season completed, the top 10 in the Always Cheating Super League. Do you want to read off the top 10 here, Brandon?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, in 10th place we've got the King. Very presumptuous there, but we salute you all the same, King. Ben McLaughlin in 10th, Alex Berger in 9th, Jimmy Norton, followed by Sebastian Frost. We got Joe Quayle in 6th, Yusuf EB in 5th place, Kala Klopp in 4th, Brian Regero in 3rd, Rano Rutel in 2nd place, and holding it down in 1st is Jake Poplowski. We've seen you before, Jake. Keep on going. It struggled a little bit. 39 points. And I think, with my 40, it's just kind of do not cede more territory than this, Jake, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was not the blank game week that we've experienced in the past.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so and so just a quick thank you to all of our Patreon supporters as well. We'll do at least one extra podcast during the international break. We used to do 2, and Brandon, those got hard. The second international break podcast. Those were really for Patreons. That is, those are the ones we started talking about. a little too much furniture talk, as we like to say, a little too much. But anyway, if you want to support the podcast, we will certainly do at least a bonus pod before the next game week kicks off. You can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. And thank you sincerely to all of our Patreon supporters. I felt really bad. Just with family in town, there was a meetup here in New York and lots of people in town. And I couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I love that our Patreons meet up and hang out.
Self-sufficient.
Exactly. And I have met them all in person before, Brandon. So they're all people that I consider friends. And so, it was a missed opportunity. I know, just in general, it's been hard for me to get out this. I don't know why. I just, yeah, who knows?
What's going on? Should we dig into that a little bit here?
Not really. No, okay. I don't think so. Okay. I mean, other than just being busy and then, I guess not wanting to sometimes. I guess that would be the other factor.
These are all symptoms of being an adult.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I know. I'm more in denial about it than you, and you've always been very good about I don't want to do something, and that's fine. And I have a lot of guilt over that sometimes. All right, so we have our game week. We have 2 weeks until the next game week. Next week, we can do our game week 30 preview. But for now, Brandon, I thought we could do a little recap. Kings of the Game Week. Now, the last time we did a Kings of the Game Week was way later than way earlier in the season than I'd realized. And I was like, well, there's no way that we're going to be able to do 25. I wouldn't even remember the names of half of these players. So
they're all gone from the league at that point.
Yeah. So I have decided that we're going to do this beginning with the first post-international break fixture. So that is game week 21, January 14th. So that gets us through the last 9 game weeks, basically what you consider the kind of second half of the season. I know that technically game week 20 would be the second half of the season, but that was still in that kind of international break window where everything runs together. It's hard to remember what happened on December 31st versus what happened on January 2nd, at least in my book it is. So, in your book it isn't, but in my book it is. So, so we're going to kick things off with game week 21.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
You set the gold standard for your business. Your website should do the same. Wix puts you at the helm, so you can enjoy the creative freedom of designing your site just the way you want. Want someone to bounce your ideas off? Talk with AI to create a beautiful site together. Generate on-brand content, images, media, and simply change or fine-tune any of it along the way. Whatever your business, manage it from one place and tie it all together with a personalized domain name. Gear up for success with a brand that says you best. You can do it yourself on Wix.
As a reminder, what we like to do, and I will share this with you, Brandon, so we can take a look at this together. It's like we can sing from the same prayer book, as you like to say.
I love the power of prayer.
Yeah, and so this is the best possible team that you could have put together. And this isn't just not. This is we'll make sure that we're discussing. This is still an audio medium primarily, Brandon, but I've got this at least for you to share here. And if anyone wants to follow along at home, this is the best team for Game Week 21 that you could have Oh wait, this is just my team. This team stinks. Hold on, let's see the best. There we go. The best possible team for 21 has 140 points.
If you could only get 59 points from the best players, God help this game. It's going down the.
I looked at it. I was like, wow. I was like, one of the defenders had 1 point, and I was like, how could that possibly be the highest anyone could have scored this week? So it's 140 points instead for Game Week 21.
Yeah.
And so the reason we call it Kings of the Game Week is because for one ill-fated season, Budweiser sponsored this best possible team. I don't know. You can just, you and I both work in the marketing advertising space, Brandon, and I can just so clearly see the pitch deck that was shared with Budweiser that laid out the 60 different options that were available to them, and with different pricing tiers. And they were like, well, how about this? For $7,500, we'll let you sponsor the best possible team for the next 38 weeks. Yeah. So anyway, they quickly abandoned that sponsorship.
And the only people talking about it will be one niche American podcast.
Exactly. But we've kept that alive, Brandon.
Out of respect for the king of beers, we have. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, I actually do. I like a Bud Light. The older I get, the more I like, especially at sporting events. I have now become a person who really enjoys a light beer at a sporting event because it's not going to fight with you. You have a Bud Light at a Mets game in the summer. That thing's going down easy. It's like drinking a glass of water, right? Absolutely. If I have some hoppy IPA or something like that at the game, it's like I'm constantly thinking about what I'm drinking. It's like it's on my mind all the time. I don't want to be thinking about it. So anyway, that's a little preamble there. So anyway, Game Week 21. It was the first proper post-international break. Not as long of a delay this time around. I feel like in past, I think it was just because the fixtures fell like a little more naturally on weekends this time around. I feel like maybe that's why it didn't feel quite as, it feels like often what we have is a lot of fixtures over the holidays, and then a couple of days go by, and then there's an FA Cup weekend, and then there's like the following weekend. And so we don't actually get the Premier League until later in the month of January, right? It feels like we almost have a little mini international break, but it didn't quite feel that way as strongly this time around. So Game Week 21, the highest score you could have had was 140 points. Player of the week was Ahmad and Brandon. And another, it's the interesting thing about doing these Kings of the Game Week is that you remember yesterday's stars. There was a moment there where Ahmad was the hottest thing in both the Premier League and fantasy. I
remember this performance. I was actually in New York for work and I had a meeting while this game was happening. And I think it was the last match against Southampton of Game Week 21.
Okay.
Got back to my desk, fired up the old app, see what was happening. Oh, Ahmad scored a hat trick in like the last 10 minutes of the game. And
didn't you have him? Was he in your squad?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
that's if I didn't have him, I would not remember that at all. But here I am remembering it.
Yeah.
And that 20 points, solid, like huge differential. Sad to see him go because.
Is he out for the rest of the season?
Yeah,
and just as unknown return date. So I think he's probably in trouble. Yeah. So that was a 3-1 win over Southampton. Other stories from Game Week 21. Phil Foden with 15 points here. I mean, just it didn't even start today or yesterday for Man City. I mean, I think we can officially call this a lost season now for Phil Foden.
Yeah.
Very little to play for at this point. Yeah.
Marmouche played in his position as Pep is continuing with the out-and-out wingers on the left and right. I thought Doku had the frustrating thing about Doku is he has zero end product, but he was really strong on the ball and really moving the ball around the pitch. I thought it was a good performance from him.
Marmouche had a nice goal too. I thought
Marmouche had a beautiful goal for sure. Yeah. So Foden, see you next season, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Take some time to think about what you really explore some new techniques during the Club World Cup. It's a good opportunity for you. Even if Man City plays all second team, I think that Foden as penance should have to play.
I think Foden should join the and one basketball circuit in the off season just to try a different set of skills.
You know what he should do actually is he should do the Steve Nash like summer series in the down in Chinatown. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, he might
rediscover
reacquainted
with what he loves in the game.
Yeah. How about playing in the dirt fields of Nacogdoches, Texas? Okay.
Sure.
Want to get a little Clint Dempsey into his game. Exactly. So other stories
like Yvonne Lendl in the stands. You got Foden is looking up to the stands, and Clint Dempsey is like giving him instructions on how to move about the pitch.
Yeah, he dangles a banana when he's ready to he's like, your protein's low, your energy's low. That's really funny.
Different. Yeah, you don't want to be dangling bananas in the stands at Premier League matches.
I guess that's true. They did that. I remember Maria Sharapova's coach once did that because her energy was low. But you're right. If you dangle a banana during a Premier League match, that is almost certainly a racist gesture.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, you have your familiar standbys in this squad as well. Isak was 16, Wood with 9. I mean, it feels like Wood makes practically every one of these team of the game or team of the weeks. Stupidan with 9, kind of fun to see him because man, a deeply satisfying Stupidan goal yesterday.
Yeah, the sound of that ball smacking the post, unreal.
Yeah, I think it's the Football Ramble guys who talked about this, but every goal is a little better when it smacks up the post. Yeah, it's just more satisfying. And then Tyrone McCann. It's a funny top 10 because just filled with players who are going to appear once in the team of the week. I mean, Dubravka with 10 points. Gahey with 15, and Mings with 9. Iwobi actually may have cracked one or two of these teams.
Yeah, he put a run together, and he's quieted quite a bit recently.
Yeah. All right, so that's game week 21. You were in New York for that, and you were in New York for game week 22 because remember you and I went to the Black Horse and had ourselves a nice quiet. Was it just the two of us in the end? I feel like we might have just been the two of us, like old time Statler and Waldorf style. Just
that sounds
sitting
right.
there
yeah.
Complaining, about the game.
So that would have been.
This one, you can. If I scroll down here, you can see this was Saturday, January 18th. So it was a weekend where in America we pay. You don't do this in Canada, but in America we paid tribute to Martin Luther King. And if you're not familiar with him, Brandon, he was a great civil rights activist.
Send me a link.
Yeah, I will.
I'll appreciate
I'll tell you more about him.
Okay, yeah. Now I'm putting this together. Okay, yeah, this is another weird one. It's all about the City midfield here with Foden, Kovacic, and Doku. And
so Foden 2 weeks in a row. I've got to pull this up now because Foden has.
Yeah, he must have been in touch with Clint during this period.
I mean, it's really the only double-digit hauls he's had. The only double-digit hauls he's had were these 2 weeks. He had a little run in January, and that was it. It's over after that.
Yeah. So this was City away Ipswich, and just another story of Ipswich getting their bottoms smacked. But that Saturday at the Black Horse, it was a Bournemouth. I mean, this was a big scalp for Bournemouth going to St. James Park and whooping Newcastle 4-1. So this Kluivert, was this when he got 3 penalties in one game? Yeah, he had his hat trick plus an assist. Huge 22-point haul for Kluivert there. And I think this is when everyone started saying, like, well, should we talk about this guy? And I don't think this was when there was injuries going on with Bournemouth, where Evan Nielsen was out and Areola was still kind of like figuring out what his best lineup with the injuries that he had was going to be. Yeah. And Kluivert was never able to get like a full-time starting lineup. And
it's a little bit, it's one of those things where if you played for a long time, you can just be a little more reluctant to bring in these kind of hot players. Like Kluivert has looked really good all season. It wasn't like this was like the first match he looked good, right? I mean, but it was like, is it like who was? Do you remember the name of the Crystal Palace player who took a bunch of pens a couple of years ago? And it was
Milivojevic.
Milivojevic, where he had some fantasy value for sure, but it was kind of primarily the value stemmed from penalty kicks. And for a minute there was like, well, is Kluivert just like a pen kick merchant, and because those obviously are like a little less predictable. But then, I think over the course of the season, I mean, as you were saying, like I think we really got impressed with his all his all pitch game,
all encompassing Kluivert.
All encompassing Kluivert, exactly. So, he's been a fun player. Bournemouth in general have been a fun story. Maybe more fun when they don't lose at home to Brentford, but still a good story. Congrats to Brentford, I guess. I did not expect them to win that match. And let's see. Yeah, Cucurella, again, popping up on here. He's really, he's been quite good. I think this is probably the first of 3 times he's going to pop up in this team of the week over the next, I think this and then 2 of the next,
very
2 of the
nearly
final 3.
beat Raya today.
I saw that. Yeah, exactly. That probably would have popped up again.
Raya is such an airhead.
Yeah. And it's funny because he kind of he was good, and then he moved to Chelsea, and it was maybe this just doesn't. He rose to the level of his incompetence, as they like to say. And then Cucurella, yeah, he wasn't always at Chelsea, was he? Didn't he move from Brighton? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I feel like when he started at Brighton, when he started at Chelsea, he didn't have the hottest start, right? And then. But he's honestly been pretty good this year.
He has been. And I think his performance in the Euros for Spain, basically winning them that final in a way, right. Basically he can dine out for the rest of his life on that.
I think that this is a thing you see. I think it's something to think about in future seasons, maybe after big international tournaments. Is it can really, across all sports, this is true too. You have players who thrive in, internet, hockey tournaments and things like that. I think of Novak Djokovic, who sort of his career leveled up when he won the Davis Cup, which is their kind of version of, the international competition. He won the Davis Cup for Serbia, and it was he was so excited, so amped up. And then he just went in this amazing, I think he had his first genuinely massive season the year after that. And sort of just because it takes place at the end of this, the calendar year. And I feel like there's something to be said for these players just sort of pushing on after that. So so I think that covers it. Chris Wood, just there he is again, popping up on the team of the week, just like he always does. Didn't have a great game today or yesterday, I thought. A little, it was they did what we thought they would do, right? We thought they would score a bunch of goals. They just didn't come from the players we wanted, right? Fantasy wise.
Wood was basically just making space, dragging everybody away. And Alonga was part of the plan. Get in behind and everyone will be focused on Chris Wood, and really great performance there.
Yeah, exactly. And I do really like this Forest team. It looks like they're probably going to make the Champions League now, which is awesome. I just, I was, again, I don't mean to keep bringing up having family in town, but it was just interesting because often because I'm an addict like you, I end up putting these games on, right? And then some people ask questions about various leagues, and they're like, so the Premier League is the best though, right? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, it is. And, because basically I was like, you still have, it's pretty hard for anyone to win the league maybe, but basically every year, right? You have Villa in the Champions League last year. It looks like Forest are going to make it this year. At least some club, there's the hierarchy can be a little disrupted, right? I mean, there's enough money sloshing around among all 20 clubs that you can put together a winning squad. And I think that alone, keeps it, it keeps at the top for me. And it also just means from a match to match perspective, you're just more likely to get a really good contest, right? You're just going to have, a Brentford can really give Man City, even prime Man City, a tough match at home, right? This is sort of the way that you just don't necessarily get in most La Liga contests. Anyway, all right. So we're moving on now to, that was just a fun little aside for you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now we move on to game week 20-3. There we go. Our man Otara is the player of the week with 21 points. Kluivert once again. Szoboszlai. This is, I feel like, when Szoboszlai started to really turn it on. He's still not a great fantasy asset, but he started to. I'd have to look back, but it feels like he's just started taking double as many shots. It was just really. There must have been some kind of intentional decision to play him in a slightly more advanced position and let him kind of go for it a little more, because I feel like first half of the season, Szoboszlai versus second is night and day in terms of kind of attacking thrust.
Interesting farewell here for Lissandro Martinez with a 15-pointer against Fulham. I remember this. God, what a guy he is. So
it's fun to root for him because he's
no, it's not fun to. I do not like him.
He's so tiny. I love a tiny center back as not a tall man myself. Yeah, maybe so. A lot of jerks.
He's a jerk. A very classic forward lineup here. I guess Gakpo is kind of like classic light for this season because he's in the midst of his run here.
Yeah,
Isak and Haaland
goes maybe a little bit.
God, it is very odd to do these Kings of the Game Week and be surprised when Haaland pops up. It's just so hard for him.
I know
right now.
It's true, and it's we talk about this like he's just like it's been a disaster, but I mean the goals keep coming. They just like even like this weekend we got a classic modern Haaland performance where they got 1 goal and 1 bonus point, right? And that's
he got a pen and didn't touch the ball except for ballooning shots over the goal.
Yeah, and yet you look and he has 21 goals on the season, right? It's like he can score 30 goals this year, and like we're kind of like, well, it's a lost season for Erling Haaland. It's kind of funny.
Sure, yeah, it is true. Like fantasy does color our view of him in that the $15 million price tag, and I'm sure like in real life, if you spent $150 million on Haaland, you would be like, not good enough. More.
Well, listen, yeah, exactly. We all saw the middle half of this season, right? Champions League and Premier League, right? I mean, he just was. I don't really know. I mean, do you blame him for that? Like, do you feel like he deserves the?
He's missed so many big chances. So I do blame him. I blame the whole team for it. But
sure.
But on the other hand, you blow big chances. The team is producing big chances for you. And Haaland is basically, his whole thing is, I'm not doing anything other than finishing.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I can do. I feel like he's got some underrated hold up play and what have you. But so, I do blame him. I think that he's part of the problem.
I don't feel like he does that much hold-up play, though, really, right? Just the way their system works, it's like I feel like he's often the only person. It's like him in the box with 4 defenders around him, And
when he's asked to do it, though, he does protect the ball.
That's true, and he does it more like around like midfield. I feel like, right? It's like you'll see him like around the center circle. All right, well, let's move on to game week 24, Brandon. Ooh, that's a big score. 170 points would have been.
I'd do with that.
Yeah, this must have been a double game week, right? This did Liverpool? This is the Liverpool double. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Chris Wood, 17 points, scores a hat trick against Brighton. Mateta, we didn't mention Mateta in the last game week, but here he is again, and we'll pour one out for him.
He might be back, I think, after the international break at least.
Oh, so really?
That's
okay. Yeah. That's good. I'm glad. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. But it really is about. I mean, I guess Everton is the story of this week because Everton. We're kind of like newly under Moyes in this double, and it did feel like a little bit of a punt. And Beto. Beto showed us the fake Beto. He showed us the fake version of himself.
It's crazy though. Goals. I mean, but Beto as the underrated. I mean, he seized the opportunity, right? It was like there was the two forward injuries, and he took over. So credit to him. What else is? I guess he had. It's really. I mean, for a double game week, it really did come down to how many Forest players you had, right? Because Nico Williams with 12 points, Gibbs White with 16, Alonga with 11, Wood with 17. So in a double game week, 4 players in the top 11 were Forest players.
Yeah, and here is your Mr. Policeman. I gave you all the clues award with Jean Rickner Bellegarde, who scores an 11-pointer, smash cut, flash forward. To game week 29, Bellegarde, 11 points again. Yep. Coincidence?
Yep.
Not.
He's looked good. I watched some of that match. He was doing some nice things on the right side. I was impressive performance.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. So Chris Wood again. Yeah, and then Salah, it was funny, we haven't even talked about Salah, 29 points from Salah. Not bad, not a bad return. I will kind of always remember this week because this is the week when I was on a triple captain Salah until late in the day on Friday, and I decided to move to slot because they announced it was like I moved because they announced a double game week 2 weeks after that, and so it was sort of. But whatever. It still was an okay game week for me. But yeah, it would have been amazing. I mean, getting 29 points is kind of the dream haul for a triple captain.
It is, yeah. And now we're in a position. I did the same thing, assistant manager instead of triple cap. And you're kind of like, well, if I land a similar points haul on my triple captain, then it was the right move.
Yeah,
but we both know the odds of that happening quite slim.
Yeah, I know. We're going to need I mean, if I do it with Isak in 32, it's going to take a huge haul from him. So yeah, and you were flying to India during.
I was in India while making this decision. I remember laying in bed, like classic, like other parts of the world get to take their time.
Yep.
And I had lots of time to kind of mull over this game week, and yeah. It was interesting. I look back at this game week often because it's like a weird blip in my like season trajectory of a little bit of a downturn.
Yeah, but
only because of how many points were just available. So points were just flooding into everybody's team, and I ultimately feel like the strategy was sound, and to break 100 is still good.
I think so. And it was a tricky week in the end. I think the logic was okay that basically this was when Bournemouth were really at their absolute kind of hottest, right? And there was a feeling that maybe the Bournemouth-Liverpool match could be a tricky one, right? And in the end, it was a pretty easy 2-0 win, if I recall. I mean, I guess Bournemouth had some chances in the first half of that one, but basically Liverpool, walked it to a 2-0. So if I remember correctly, I think it was 2-0.
It was, yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to game week 25. It's funny, they have not incorporated the assistant manager, by the way, into the best possible team that you could put together. I'm kind of curious. Yeah, it'd be fun to see each week, Marco Silva pop up or something. So the team of the week for 25, you have Ederson with 11 points. An assist. I think, so have we now had 3 assists from goalkeepers in the season? I think, didn't Pickford get an assist at one point too?
He may have, yeah. I wonder, did Sells also? Yeah, there have been a few. Certainly Leno this weekend.
3 or 4. I think 3 is the floor of goalkeeper assists we've had this year.
Okay, yeah,
good a goalkeeper goal.
Good job. I mean, that'll keep Ederson, smiling. Keep that little smiley face tattoo. This might
be outside of Mo Salah. This might be one of the more random collections of players. I mean, it's certainly a big score. 147 points is the most you could have in game week 25. But the players who performed, I guess there's the Marmoush breakout game. But you have Alcaraz with 13 points, Christie with 13, Minta, Jed Spence, like nobody had anything close to this team in their squad. There's not even like a fan. It's so spread out across all these various clubs. Like this is just the most random. Your boy Calvin Bassey made this team.
The base man. All right.
Yeah. Jed Spence made this team, Brandon. Just a wild collection. Of course, Mo Salah also got 20 as his want. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a funny one. And then Ollie Watkins too with 15 points. So how do you get 15 points? What is that, like a
goal and an assist and max bonus? Is that what happened?
Yeah, let's see. It was a double for them because they had Liverpool and Ipswich in 25.
Right, of course.
Right. So 7 and 25, 7 in the first fixture, 8 in the
2
second.
goals.
Yeah,
one in each. It should be mentioned that this is Minta's second appearance here. So it's funny, like Brighton will have a budget midfielder pop up in. Seems like the pace is every other Kings of the Game Week will have another Brighton mid.
Nobody scouts like them, right? I mean, it's incredible, like how good they are at this stuff. Yeah, and I think it's funny because I almost forgot it was a double game week because there are no other Villa players in this best 11, and that just shows you how hit or miss the double game week can be, right? I mean, yeah, you might get 20 from Salah, Trent's on here with 13, but that but kind of no one has come through. Now, maybe that's a little bit the story for Villa this year. I mean, they've been able to put it all together in the Champions League, but in the Premier League, it's been a real hit or miss year.
It has, yeah. I hope it was. Yeah, this was I hope it was worth it with Ollie Watkins, because I think I sold Chris Wood ahead of his hat trick, the previous game week, to get on board with this double. And here we are. I've got him back. I think I bought Chris Wood for the third time going into game week 29.
It's at least 2 for me now. All right, well, let's go on to game week 26 now, Brandon. We've got Marco Asensio cracks the team for the first time with a brace, I believe. Yes, it was. I believe it was a brace. Yep. Home to Chelsea. I think both those, at least the second goal, I feel like came very late in that match too. Almost at the very end, if I remember. Brennan Johnson, kind of a little bit of a lost season for him, after such a hot start to the year, right? It feels like he was a key fantasy asset. A lot of people were bringing him in on first wild cards, but there he is again. Mo Salah, I think this is his third week in a row cracking the top team. Spozley again too. So there you go. And let's see, Isak, João Pedro, who I've just never been able to get right this year. I just just one of those seasons, with me and João. I just I drop him, I buy him. It's kind of like Chris Wood, honestly. I just, it's never quite worked out.
Lots of pens for João Pedro, and those are really hard to predict, certainly.
We have some more Palace defenders too. Munoz and Lacroix, both in the squad. Anything else stand out to you for
Wan-Bissaka? I think that he's been one of my sort of watch list guys from the Graham Potter West Ham. And I think he will be talked about going into the start of next season, assuming he doesn't get like a ridiculous 5.0 price tag. If he remains at 4.5, I think he'll be in a lot of game week 1 teams.
That's true. I wonder if he does get up to 5. He probably does, sadly. But he might not. I mean, I think if he starts at West Ham, you could certainly make a case for just keeping him at 5. It's not like he scores that much.
Yeah, the Brennan Johnson thing too, just like talking about teams going for Europe. Where is Spurs? With Manchester United's win against Leicester, they move ahead of Spurs. Spurs sit in 14th place on 34 points, and there are three teams on 34 points: Everton, West Ham, and Spurs. Like one point less, and Spurs are suddenly duking it out with Wolves. It's just like, I don't want to rub salt in the wound here, but a remarkably bad run for Postecoglou here.
Yeah, that's surely this is it for him.
Sure, I think he's gone in the summer. He has to be.
Yeah, no point doing it now, I suppose. All right, so game week 27. Ooh, look at all this blue, Brendan. A river of blue. Cucurella with 15. I will always remember this week because this is the week I brought in. It was like a genuine coin flip between Cucurella and Dorgu, and what a change that has been. So Cucurella with 15 points, Cole with 14, and Cuckoo 12, Neto 11. Wow, so 4 Chelsea players are in the best possible team. No,
guess who they played?
I'm guessing they played with Southampton.
Yeah.
It was Southampton or Ipswich. I couldn't remember. Yeah. Aaron Cresswell. Wow. I mean, blast from the past there, Brandon. Cresswell cracks this team with 9 points. Yeah. Ederson again, another 11-pointer from Ederson. Did you get another assist or I don't know what's going on? No, it was just the 6 saves and then 3 bonus. So there you go. You got 11. Spozley again. So that's 3 times in 4 game weeks now. Quite good from him. I mean, what do you think about Spozley?
I think he's great.
Yeah, fantasy wise, I mean, like
he's tough. I think it's a Jordan Henderson sort of a thing. Jordan Henderson was always like, he's kind of interesting. I can afford him on a good team, and he'll pop up with really good goals. But just manufacturing goals from a midfield workhorse is tough. He had those 3 matches, and that's it. Otherwise, you're getting 1, 2, or 3 points from Szoboszlai. So it's a gamble there to give one of your coveted middle budget tier spots to Szoboszlai when your range is your likelihood of getting the floor of 3 points or 2 points is higher.
And it takes up a Liverpool spot too. So well, Brian with 10 points for Everton, the first of 2 10-pointers in the final the last 3 weeks. So let's move on now, Brandon, to game week 28, which was last week's fixtures. Pretty low scoring team of the week this time around with 118 points. I think it might be the lowest we've seen going through these. So Cucurella yet again with another 15-pointer. Mings, I did not expect to see Mings twice, Brandon, but there he is. Tyrone Mings appears again. Van Hack.
You said that like you're seeing Gene Parmesan in Arrested Development.
Yeah. Mings. Hermanson with 10. So how do you like that? Yeah, Herman's. Yeah.
Do I like that? Does that register any emotion for you? Hermanson, I mean, I think when people see the 10-pointer from Hermanson, they feel pain because that means he's saved Cole Palmer's penalty.
That's true. The real story of this week were the Sarr brothers. I Sar and PM Sar, both Papa Matar Sar. I don't actually think they're related at all, but and Ismaila Sar with a great goal late in that match for Crystal Palace. Such an impressive player. I've always enjoyed watching him play, going back to his Watford days. Bruno Guimaraes, kind of some randos on this Game Week 28 list too, right? Maybe that's reflected in it being a low scoring, top game week, but Darwin there with 10 points as well. I mean, anytime Darwin's cracking the best possible game week, something went a little amiss.
Yeah. Bruno Guimaraes at 6 million. It's like if he were 5.5, I think that people would talk about him as a fantasy asset. He's like superseded Joe Linton, probably because he's been injured so much as the talismanic midfield figure for Newcastle. And the amount of badge kissing this guy does is, it's like borderline disingenuous how much he does it. But he seems like he loves it in Newcastle. God bless him.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's fun when Newcastle are good. They're like one of those teams that it's like the Premier League is better when they're good. Just because I think there's it's geographically they're in a kind of different spot than most of the rest of the Premier League, and famously have great fans and a big stadium. And if you and I make it to the UK this fall, I think that would be a really fun trip to make because I feel like it'd be unlike anything we've been to so far.
No doubt.
All right, so that is maybe we just need to be a northern trip in general. We just skipped London entirely. What do you think about that? Just Liverpool and
no museums, no fine food. It's just all pies. And those shipping yards.
All those amazing museums you and I have been going to on our recent UK visits. Yes. All right, so that brings us now to game week 29. This very game week. It's the best possible team. Once again, there's O'Brien. The very late goal for Everton. I think it was in extra time for the 1-1 equalizer. Leno, we talked about him already with 13. Della with 11. Milinkovic, gosh, he's been excellent this season, and just a real nose for goal. I think he's got at least 3 goals in the season now. He's been fantastic.
He's nowhere near Souček. At 7 goals, this guy just incredible. There's nobody better than Souček.
It's remarkable. I mean, it's incredible. He's equaled last year's returns, right? 7 goals and 2 assists. I mean, he could maybe get double digits again, like he did back in 2021. So I hope so.
Let's do it, Thomas.
Thomas Souček. I mean, to watch the Premier League is to love Thomas Souček.
I just love how exquisitely dumb his goal celebration is too. Where he just spins around. It's just it's so perfect. I love it.
Yeah, he always seems very surprised by it. It's like, so we got your Bellegarde, your boy, and Strand Larson as well. Marmouche with 12. So just a fun, some fun people scored goals this week. An interesting mix of
a great dinner
players.
Party is this Kings of the Game Week.
I'd love to sit down at a table of a 12 top with these 11 players. Brandon.
I'm definitely sitting between Norgard and Leno. I think
that's interesting. I was thinking I want to sit next to Souček.
Okay.
But
what are you going to ask Thomas Souček about? What's your opening gambit with him? You're going to ask him like, so what are you watching?
Yeah. Right? Do you enjoy having a racetrack around your stadium?
Get right into the civil engineering of.
What about Anthony Elanga? He feels like he might be fun.
I'm talking to Anthony Elanga over coffee and
the next
cake.
morning.
No.
You're thinking like you.
I'm going home with Elanga.
You're going home with them.
Let's do F, Marry, Kill with this Kings of the Game Week.
It's an interesting mix though. Dello as well. I mean, he never quite realized his superstar fantasy potential, but I don't know how much of that is it's just on to Man United. He's been pretty good, I feel like, but so anyway, I don't know. We'll see. I don't, who even knows? I mean, it's a little bit like Spurs where you're like, are they going to run this back again next year or what? Like, it's hard to say.
Are we talking about Spurs or Manchester United here?
Man United, I'm saying similar to Spurs. There's a feeling right now, like, they won today, and so maybe we don't want to be too negative
with
right
Spurs, it feels like, well, at least you built the stadium. That's done.
Right.
Manchester United they are all over the place. They're unveiling these insane looking studios or stadium schematics. Their team is insane. Their manager is insane.
Yeah, the owner is like clamping down on food for staff.
They've got the Doge policy happening at Old Trafford, and
which it doesn't make any sense because it's like it's a real like. It's like it's like I can't remember who says this, like Susie Orman or whatever, but it's like don't fret about the cold brew that you buy in the morning. You know what I mean? It's like these are like you add up all your cold brews in a year and they mean nothing compared to like the big purchases that you think even less about. So
I do think United are in a position where they kind of do have to start sticking with decisions at some point. So I think they're running it back here with this manager.
I guess
this
they probably are, but man, they just tried this with Ten Hag. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. But again, they won today. Let's keep the energy positive for this squad. So that's it though, Brendan. That's your teams of the game week. Always fun. It always ends up being even like I always look forward to these because I think it's fun to look back, and maybe it's the kind of thing I enjoy most about. Maybe even just the Premier League itself, right? Is just these little storylines and the way that they
classic game of remember some guys.
It is kind of a remember some guys theme, but it's when I remember them fondly.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like when we look back, it's like, yes, Ahmad. Well, how fun was it when he was hot for a few weeks there?
Yeah, there's it was like the midpoint of the season in any like sitcom, and they would do like the clip show.
Mm-hmm. They get halfway through and they'd run out of scripts. And,
so there would be some sort of like framing device of let's look through this photo album. Yep. Oh, remember this episode? And this is a good clip episode.
I know it's now they do 10 episode seasons every 25 months. And I think I liked it more when you had 20 a season.
40 episodes of trash as opposed to 10 episodes of that you never knew when they were coming and would they be good or not.
Yeah, exactly. I think but and they often were trash. I mean, Seinfeld did it every week and that's 9 out of 10 bangers. Same with The Simpsons, you know? So it's I don't know. I mean, are you watching, what do you think about season 2? I have not watched any Severance yet, so I don't want you to spoil anything, but
I watched the first episode of season 2 and like fell asleep harder than I have fallen asleep in a long time.
Oh, interesting.
But that's not necessarily a criticism of the show. That's just a criticism of my work and sleeping patterns.
Sure. Yeah. It's a reflection. Yeah.
I haven't caught up with it yet, though. I mean to. I really like the first season.
Well, let's get out of here then, Brandon. Let's do you want to say thank you to our producer patrons?
Absolutely. If you want to support the show, say thanks, get more fantasy content in return, like an extra weekly ad-free podcast, go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. Of course, a big thanks to our producers, the highest possible Patreon tier, We salute you, Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner, Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazaros Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Bobbas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Frode Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Fennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the three Jims, James Murray Wood, Jim C., James C. to his friends and family, James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Nath's Tutoring, and Francis Mann. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Follow us wherever you get social media. AlwaysCheating.com is our website.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back with a Game Week 30 preview next week. Bye.
So you've got a business, but what about a brand? The difference? More of you. Wix gives you the freedom to create your website, own your brand, and do it on your own, exactly how you envisioned it. Experience limitless customization. Boost your creativity and efficiency with AI tools for every part of your business journey. Scale up with built-in SEO, e-com, and scheduling features. Put more of you in your business. Go to Wix.com and do it all yourself.